I want to talk about a particular scene in Avatar: The Last Airbender that, at least in my experience, isn't often included in the ranks of the most standout moments in the series. It isn't a scene in which a major plot point or twist plays out, nor is it a sequence of breathtaking animation, and arguably, it isn't even a moment that could be considered necessary in the overall story. What makes this scene so memorable for me, however, is the stellar voice acting performance given by the voice of Katara, Mae Whitman. Devastated by the discovery that Aang has fled and abandoned his friends in an act of damaged pride, Katara confronts her father, Hakoda, for his similar abandonment of her and her brother to aid in the resistance against the Fire Nation's imperialistic war. The resentment and pain that Katara harbors around her father's abandonment of her is made clear in her cold attitude toward Hakoda in their interactions earlier in the episode in which this scene occurs. And it comes to a boiling point in a raw, tearful exchange in which Katara's guard completely comes down. We see her at perhaps her most vulnerable in the entire series, no longer the determined, unbreakable young woman who has seen her brother and her friends through some of their greatest hardships, but once more a terrified and helpless girl who has been scarred by the hellish cruelty of war. Mae Whitman's performance paints this image so vividly. Even without the aid of the animation, we feel the painful depths of Katara's sorrow through her voice. We can hear her fighting back tears, her mind racing in rage and despair as her mouth scrambles to keep up. It's a powerful, touching moment that never fails to impact me when I watch it. The means by which a voice actor achieves a powerful performance, such as the one given here by Mae Whitman, will inevitably vary from one actor to another. Every actor has their own unique creative process, tied to their own unique artistic identity, and acting as an art form is not a monolith. There are many different approaches and schools of thought that have been developed over many years, and while there are purists, most trained actors are exposed to a variety of different philosophies, and ultimately build their own toolbox by taking bits and pieces from different sources that they most resonate with. When viewing a painting or sculpture, keen analysts can often identify certain specialized techniques and niche methods implemented by the artist in order to achieve the particular result that we see. From an acting performance, however, it is virtually impossible to deduce the exact techniques and methods that the actor preferred when approaching the performance, as we don't see characteristic brushstrokes or textures produced by specific tools. However, just as is the case with any fine art, there are certain fundamental principles, concepts, and techniques of acting that are widely implemented by most actors and are foundational to truthful and enchanting performances that allow audiences full suspension of their disbelief and to become lost in the world of the story being told. I have no way of knowing exactly what Mae Whitman's approach was that yielded her performance in this scene. Even if I were able to ask her directly, it wouldn't be unlikely that she wouldn't quite remember, as the scene was recorded over 15 years ago. What I would like to do, however, is present this scene as an example of strong core acting fundamentals in practice, and introduce certain foundational elements, which Whitman may or may not have consciously drawn from herself when crafting this performance. In doing this, my hope is to provide useful knowledge and insight into the art of acting for voice actors, aspiring, amateur, and veteran alike. As an actor with about 8 years of formal training and about 17 years of performing experience, mostly on stage, but now with a few years of amateur voice acting under my belt, I am not nearly as qualified as a professional teacher or coach. For one thing, I hardly have any professional experience. And while I've obtained a university degree in the art form, that does not by any means make me an authority on acting. I still have a lot to learn, and I intend to maintain that attitude throughout my entire life as an actor. However, in the short but amazing journey I've had as an amateur voice actor so far, I've encountered many inspired, creative people who want to explore voice acting for themselves, but don't really have much experience with acting and sometimes lack the confidence to even get started in the first place. What I hope to achieve here is to help pull back the curtain on acting technique a bit for them, to provide some inspiration and basic tools for them to play with as they begin their acting journey, which will hopefully help them to develop their confidence in making those first steps and spark their curiosity for this wonderful art form. Really, all I'm doing here is just talking about something that I'm passionate about: phenomenal, visceral, and impactful acting. In doing so, I hope to open up discourse to other similarly passionate people. What follows is my own analysis, which is informed by my own perspective and background as an actor. I would love to hear from other actors of all experience levels what they feel makes this scene so powerful, so effective, and what approaches to creating a performance like this one they resonate with, whether they're mentioned here or not. All that having been said, let's talk about voice acting.
I'll leave you two alone.
For an actor, every scene begins well before the action that the audience sees. For the characters in the story, no scene takes place in a vacuum. Everything is informed by the events that surround it, which naturally includes the moment before the scene begins. A principle aptly named moment before in acting refers to the actor embodying the physical, emotional, and psychological circumstances surrounding their character's experience just before the scene begins. In this scene, Katara rushes up to the deck after discovering that Aang has left. Mae Whitman has clearly let Katara's experience of worry and despair, her feeling betrayed, and her helplessness drop in before she delivers her first lines.
What's wrong, Katara?
He left.
What?
Aang. He just took his glider and disappeared.
By preparing a strong moment before for herself, Whitman is able to instantly lock in to what this scene means for Katara, rather than having to rely on a sort of emotional momentum building up as the scene progresses. Before getting into how an actor creates a strong moment before for themselves, I'd like to first address something here that, in my opinion, can be a bit of a pitfall for novice actors, and is crucial to understanding modern acting technique. We've just established that a lot of strong emotions can be felt behind Katara's first lines here, and it's not unlikely that you've heard that acting is all about emoting or portraying emotions to communicate the drama of a scene to the audience. I'd like to challenge that and posit that it's much more helpful to frame one's thinking around acting not primarily by emotion, but by, well, acting. That is, doing something actively. Powerful acting performances depict someone who wants something. They want it so desperately with all of their soul that they do whatever they believe is necessary to get that thing. The laughter, tears, fury, all of the emotion that they undergo is a byproduct of their focused, committed efforts to attain this goal, or objective, as it's frequently referred to by actors. Sometimes an objective is clear-cut, perhaps even handed to us by the script itself. Earlier in the episode, we hear Aang say,
"I need to redeem myself. I need my honor back."
It is therefore quite clear why he decides to leave on his own. The frustration and desperation he feels in this later scene where he's trying to push his way through a storm to get to the Fire Nation both emerge organically out of his own struggle against the elements and his own injuries in pursuit of this ultimate objective. In some cases, though, a character's objective may not be so immediately clear, concrete, and easy to pin down to one short sentence. Coming back to Katara, it's clear that she wants Aang to come back, but this exchange with her father isn't going to make that happen. And indeed, she doesn't engage her father by saying something to that practical end, like, "We need to change course to find Aang." Rather, by the end of the scene, it's clear that Katara had sought to confront her father about his abandonment of her and Sokka. However, this is not yet a very effective objective for an actor. It doesn't have a clear cap to it. That is to say, there's not a clearly defined metric for when Katara has successfully confronted her father. Her confronting her father is in fact nothing more than an action that she implements to work toward her objective in this scene. To find our objective, we kind of have to be like a little kid, always asking, well, why? In this scene, Katara comes to speak to her father. Well, why? Because she wants to tell him about Aang. Well, why? Because she's very upset about it. Well, why? Because she's been abandoned again by somebody she loves, and now she wants to confront her dad about how he abandoned her. Well, why? What does she hope to get out of confronting her dad, and how will she know when she's gotten it? That's the last question we need to answer. Ironically, objectives can sometimes be, well, subjective. There's not always an exact right answer, and it becomes the work of an actor to consider an objective for themselves that really activates their own inner emotional life, something that they can connect to on a personal level. I can't say with any certainty and verbal accuracy what objective Mae Whitman set for Katara in this scene, but one possibility, Just as an example, maybe that by confronting her father, Katara wants to expel all of the pain that she's feeling. This may not be a very rational objective, as it's often impossible to instantly stop feeling a certain way just by venting out our frustrations to someone. But an objective does not need to be rational, it only needs to be justifiable. Katara is overwhelmed by the pain of abandonment that she's felt not only from her father, but now from Aang. It's a consuming, horrible feeling, and she can't bear it anymore. She convinces herself that the only way to get rid of this feeling is to go to her father and unleash all of her built-up anger and sadness at him, and maybe he will be able to make it go away. This objective has a clear cap. When Katara doesn't feel her pain anymore, she has achieved her objective. Of course, that doesn't happen by the end of the scene. It's not uncommon that a character does not achieve their objective for a given scene by its end. That's okay. As the old saying goes, it's about the journey, not the destination. Establishing an objective, the reason your character is here in this scene, is foundational to constructing the moment before. However, clarifying the objective is only one step of the process, and it is inevitable that a certain degree of emotional friction still needs to be generated in order for the actor to enter the scene fully activated and in tune with the stakes of the scene. We talked about how emotion comes as a byproduct of the character's pursuit of their objective, grinding against the obstacles that come in their way. But how do we, the actors, access this emotion when we don't really have any obstacles in our way? How do we generate friction out of nothing? The answer lies in make-believe. We have to make ourselves believe that we want what our character wants, and that there is something standing in the way of that we need to overcome in order to get it. Well, how do we do that? This is where we need our imagination, and the magic of if. If you were just abandoned by your best friend, what would you do? If one of the most precious people in your life went off to war, leaving you no idea when or if they would return, what would that be like? Mae Whitman may have asked herself questions like these in order to help her connect with the imaginary circumstances of this scene. Now, it's perfectly normal, of course, if you ask yourself one of these questions and can only shrug and think, I guess that would suck. Would being the key word. After all, something like this might not have ever happened to you. But the work of the actor is not just to ask these questions on an intellectual level. We need to engage with them on an intensely specific and embodied emotional and physical level. Jumping back to our scene, Mae Whitman needs to establish for Katara, who is Aang to me? What does he mean to me? What would it mean if he were to leave my life for good? When I open the door to Aang's quarters and see he isn't there, how does my body react to that? Does my chest tighten? Does my stomach hurt? Do I feel lightheaded? I want to highlight here that the purpose of these questions is not so much to yield verbal answers as it is to yield emotional and physical responses. When an actor is able to truly give themselves over to the imaginary circumstances, they are not merely simulating what it would look like if they were undergoing this experience. They are undergoing this experience as the character. There needs to be a certain reality of doing present in the actor's performance. In the context of voice acting, what this means is that Mae Whitman's focus as the voice actor is not centered on how she is going to deliver her next line to best represent Katara's strife. It is centered on actually pursuing that objective of getting Hakoda to make the horrible feelings that Katara is suffering through go away. If she is truthfully invested in those imagined circumstances, we will hear it reflected in her voice, without her having to plan out how it should sound. If she believes in the circumstances, we will believe in the circumstances. And, by that same token, if the actor doesn't believe in what they are doing, the audience will not either. The resulting performance will be phoned in at best and outright hammy at worst. It's at this point that I want to make a quick but very important excursion. As we just outlined, an actor does not simply represent a character's experience. They embody it, channel it, and experience it themselves. In the case of our example, what Katara is experiencing is something quite terrible, and it's not unlikely that you will encounter similar terrible experiences that your characters endure in your own voice acting career. Hardship and turmoil make for good drama, after all. Does this mean that you need to make peace with suffering for your art? Absolutely not. But it does mean that you need to be careful and considerate of your own well-being. In the world of our imagination, we are safe from any real danger. We may very well experience emotions that, in the moment, are very real, but we always have the safety of breaking out of that world and grounding ourselves in reality if things get too intense. While I encourage you to be brave, open, and healthily vulnerable when you engage with your imagination, please stay as far away as possible from any potential triggers that may call up trauma as best you can. I promise it does not make for good acting for you, the actor, to simply suffer in front of an audience. Take frequent breaks and have a plan to ground yourself. Listen to a favorite song, snuggle with a pet, joke around between takes if you're recording with a director or in a group, whatever it takes to reassure yourself that you are safe and okay. It may be a bit scary at first to venture into these particularly intense emotional states, but I think the draw for many actors is the sense of catharsis, freedom, and self-expression that it brings. Be brave, but be safe. Having established and dropped in the moment before, Mae Whitman engages the scene fully activated and connected to Katara's objective. Now, for her as the actor, the focus becomes how Katara is going to achieve that objective. What specific action must she take? What particular tactics might she employ? How will she react to the obstacles that come in her way? To approach these questions, it might be helpful to think about what's really being said by the characters in this scene. With our magic if, we can imagine what the characters would say if they were being 100% truthful, direct, and unfiltered. Because we're so accustomed to doing it, we don't often consciously recognize how much we don't say what we really mean. We condition ourselves over the course of our lives to temper what we say in order to stay within the bounds of unspoken social norms. We want to be polite, we want to keep the good favor of the people we're speaking with, we want to avoid direct confrontation, but these wants can easily come into conflict with other, stronger wants. Let's jump back to a scene from Book 2, Episode 9 for an example.
You know, I'm really glad you feel that way, because I also have this great new nutcracker.
Actually, I'd prefer if you didn't. That's an antique, handcrafted by the monks. It's a delicate instrument.
It's not the only delicate instrument around here.
The joke here is pretty clear. Aang feels a great deal more strongly than just preferring that Toph doesn't damage his glider. He is not all that interested in giving a history lesson or explaining the techniques with which the monks created the glider. And both he and Toph are already very much aware that it is a delicate instrument. So what is Aang really saying here? Something along the lines of, "Please put my glider down. Please stop it. Please stop." And, of course, Toph comes back with her own not-so-subtly encoded message, something like, "Make me, you pushover." This hidden dialogue that runs underneath the actual script can be referred to as subtext, and is reflective of the inner monologue, the true, unfiltered thoughts and feelings of the characters. The subtext can help us identify the actions and tactics that the characters are employing in order to get what they want. In our example here, Aang is all too gently trying to appeal to Toph's sense of empathy by pleading with her to put his glider down, and Toph responds by taunting him, trying to provoke him into confronting her directly, which, by the episode's end, he does finally do.
Enough! I want my staff back!
This line is a particularly great example of how subtext and actual dialogue can overlap in moments where characters directly speak their minds without holding back. It explicitly states Aang's objective in that moment, that being to get his staff back. When leveraging subtext to help build a performance, it is helpful to tie it back to the character's objective in the given scene. The subtext plays an active role in the way that the characters engage each other, and in particularly intense, dramatic moments, it may be addressed by one of the characters directly. Looking back at our original scene,
He has this ridiculous notion that he has to save the world alone, that it's all his responsibility.
Maybe that's his way of being brave.
It's not brave, it's selfish and stupid. We could be helping him, and I know the world needs him, but doesn't he know how much that we need him too? How can he just leave us behind?
You're talking about me too, aren't you?
It is important that a moment like this is earned. It is only believable to us that Hakoda senses the undercurrent of Katara's short monologue here because we also feel it through Mae Whitman's performance. We can hear the encoded messages just beneath the surface of her actual words, even well before the veil becomes as thin as it does by the end of her last line. We hear Katara's scathing condemnation of Hakoda's abandonment. We hear her refusal to let him avoid her any longer. We hear her verbally reaching out and grabbing her father, pleading with him to help her to make everything better. As a voice actor, you may decide to go through your scripts and write down the subtext as you interpret it for each line of dialogue. This can be particularly helpful for lines that feel very far removed from something that you, the actor, would normally say. As an exercise, you can try going through your entire script reading only the subtext in order to help you make a more direct emotional connection to the scene. When you've done that, try reading again with the actual script, attempting to actively transfer the intent of the much more visceral subtext into your lines. It can be helpful to go one line at a time and practice repeating the subtext and actual text directly after one another, almost trying to synthesize them with one another. The next moment of the scene is its climax. Hakoda has directly acknowledged that Katara is not just expressing her distress about Aang's leaving, but rather confronting him about his abandonment of her and Sokka, and Katara stops hiding her true intent.
How could you leave us, Dad? I mean, I know we had Gran and she loved us, but we were just so lost without you.
There is a popular myth that all actors, or good actors anyway, have the ability to cry on command, to spawn tears in their eyes out of nothing more than sheer will. This is, in my opinion, stupid. While it does hold true that actors tend to be particularly sensitive people, and therefore are in touch with their emotions enough to be able to easily bring themselves to tears, being able to summon tears on command is not the mark of a good actor, and is nothing more than a party trick. A great actor does not cry just because the script dictates that they are supposed to cry now. They cry because it becomes inevitable. Mae Whitman's sobbing in this moment is the product of her intensely focused connection to her character, her need in this moment to make this horrible pain inside her go away, and, critically, her deep and full breath, which anchors her focus and fuels her emotional life in this moment. It can be easy to lose sight of the breath as one of the most crucial foundational elements of a powerful acting performance. It can be taken for granted, its mere presence assumed to be enough, as the actor is much more concerned with the psychological and the emotional. However, emotion does not live in the mind, it lives in the body, and the energy our bodies use and exert come from our breath. It therefore becomes very important to be mindful of your own breath when reading particularly emotionally charged scenes like this one. Let's look at the last few lines one more time, listening for when Mae Whitman takes a breath.
It's not brave, it's selfish and stupid. We could be helping him, and I know the world needs him, but doesn't he know how much that we need him too? How can he just leave us behind?
You're talking about me too, aren't you?
How could you leave us, Dad?
Each of these breaths functions like a burst of air from a bellows, fanning the flames of the actor's inner emotional fire. You may find that you are able to intuit where you will draw your breaths in your own scenes, but if you're finding that you are having trouble driving the energy of a line through to the end, or that your voice is failing you, you may even decide to write your breaths into your script, plan out exactly where you will breathe. Being strategic about when and where to breathe can make a world of difference for a scene you might be struggling to connect to. The quality of breath likewise cannot be overlooked. In moments where emotions are high, it's easy for us to default into hurried, strained, shallow breaths. It is vital to actively work against this reflex, ensuring that our breaths are full and deliberate so that we don't compromise our connection to our vocal instrument. Listen to the resonant quality of Mae Whitman's voice in her final lines.
I understand why you left. I really do. And I know that you had to go. So why do I still feel this way? I'm so sad and angry and hurt.
Yes, her voice is breaking, and yes, we can hear the tension in her throat that comes along with the tears, but what we don't hear is unintelligible squeaking or hyperventilating, both of which may be more commonly observed when somebody actually does break out into sobs. Going into hysterics like that may perhaps have its time and place, but most of the time it presents a very inactive character, one who is completely given up on the pursuit of any objective and is instead resigned to being overwhelmed by their own emotions. This kind of emotional indulgence is not compelling for the audience. They don't just want to see somebody cry. They want to see somebody who is trying so hard to get something that it brings them to tears. And then they want to see them continue to push for what they want through those tears. There's a real power behind Katara's words in her final line, one that's driven all the way through the line by the actor's controlled and deliberate breath. Take one more listen.
So why do I still feel this way? I'm so sad and angry and hurt.
Only in the last two words Katara speaks in this scene does her voice completely fail her, and the moment in which it does is, in my opinion, more than earned. To reiterate for the final time, I do not know how Mae Whitman approached her performance for this scene. She may have gone through an entire array of preparatory methods and employed a whole range of techniques that I did not touch on. Or she may have relied entirely on her own well-trained instincts, without consciously employing any of these techniques at all. No matter what the answer is, though, the fact still stands that this scene is emblematic of strong acting fundamentals and the powerful performances they can help to generate. Mae Whitman connects with a potent moment before to ground herself in her character and the imaginary circumstances and stakes of the scene. Her character is actively in pursuit of a meaningful objective that drives her actions and tactics in the scene. There is a reality of doing present in her performance. Each moment of the scene is supercharged with truthful intent and underscored with palpable subtext. Each of these elements is anchored in and driven by a strong connection to her breath. All of this comes together to create an impassioned and impactful performance that, personally, causes me to tear up just about every time I watch it. And I'm sure I'm not alone in experiencing this kind of emotional resonance. The power that great actors have to affect us so deeply is something that is often mystified or even reduced to nothing more than raw talent, this unidentifiable something that you either have or you don't. I hope that I was able to clear out some of this smoke and demonstrate that much like any other art form, be it painting or musical composition or writing or any other fine art, acting comes with its own set of fundamentals that comprise an effective performance, as well as techniques, methodologies, and theories designed around how one best draws a performance out of oneself that is truthful, unique, and meaningful. While the existence of natural talent is undeniable, it is an error to believe that acting cannot be studied, learned, and trained. If you are an actor in any capacity, I sincerely hope that I was able to offer even the smallest bit of insight into your own craft, an inspiration for how to continue to develop and hone it. If you don't consider yourself an actor in any capacity, I'm thrilled that you stuck with me this far, and I hope that I was able to ignite some of your own curiosity about acting as an art form. Again, I'd like to encourage you to share your own thoughts, be they about this scene or some of the elements I outlined. What makes this performance powerful in your opinion? How might you have approached it as a voice actor? Acting, like any art form, thrives on the exchange of ideas. So let's talk about it. More than that, let's talk about voice acting. I find it extremely lamentable that scenes like this have historically been overlooked or dismissed simply on the grounds that they aren't real acting performances. That is to say, on camera, or because they're from an animation or video game which have been stereotyped as being exclusively children's media. Of course, the good news is that this sentiment is generally shifting, but I do still want more for voice acting as an art form, and so I hope to continue to lift it up through breakdowns and analyses like this, depending on how effective this video actually ends up being. That being said, if you enjoyed listening to my ramblings here, I'd love to hear some of your favorite standout voice acting moments that you'd like to see similar breakdowns of, or perhaps certain topics around voice acting like voice direction or the process of building a character in their voice, or improvisation techniques that you'd like a deep dive into. Again, I'm no pro, but I'm always more than happy to just gush about this art form that brings so much joy into my life just about every single day.